Season 2 of Netflix's Atypical has received rave reviews from critics for its honest and thoughtful portrayal of a young teenager with autism. I'm Zach Laws of Gold Derby, and with me right now is that show's creator, Robia Rashid. And Robia, Robbie, thank you. Sorry. Robbie, tell us a little bit about, going into this second season. What were some of the things that you hoped to achieve story-wise, casting-wise, things like that?
Sure. Well, coming out of first season, we were really happy about a lot of what we had achieved creatively. We tell a lot of stories. We tell very dense stories. We try to mix comedy and drama. We felt like we had gotten, we sort of hit the target on a lot of what we were trying to do. One thing that we going into season 2 really wanted to do was have a little more involvement from the autism community. So that was a real priority. And so we did a few things. We hired a consultant who is on the spectrum, who is a writer, David Finch, and he reads all our scripts and watches all our cuts and comes to set here and there. And he's been wonderful. And he's just a nice, hilarious guy. And then we also hired a lot more autistic actors to play both roles of people with autism, but also neurotypical roles. And that was something that we were really excited about on both fronts. Sam's peer group is obviously an example of that, but there are also characters throughout season 2, and characters who were neurotypical in the show who are actually on the spectrum as well.
Yeah, I mean, so what does that kind of involvement add to the show?
Well, one thing is, I couldn't love Keir, the actor who plays Sam, more. I just love him. I think he does an amazing job. But one of my goals, and partly, as a human, but also as a woman of color, is to showcase some diversity within our groups. And autism affects people of all races and genders and colors. And so that was a kind of an important thing to us, was really showing sort of a diverse group on the spectrum.
Right. So take us back to the beginning. I mean, where did the idea for this show come from?
I started as a playwright, and then I worked in network TV for a while, for 10 years. And I kind of wanted to get back to my roots and write something weird. And I love stories, and I love stories from sort of a different point of view. So I wanted to write about a person looking for love and sort of tell it from a different point of view. And I have someone close to me who's on the spectrum. And so, I have some experience with that. But also those characters are very different. So I kind of dove into the voice of Sam. I spent some time kind of getting his voice in my head, and then I sort of dove in and just played with that for a while. And this character and then his whole family sort of started to emerge.
Was that a difficult thing to do? I mean, because on the one hand, we see movies and TV shows about people with disabilities all the time, and at times they can be, dare I say, cartoonish, and slightly offensive. So, I mean, was it a difficult thing for you to be able to, capture that voice in a way that was honest and truthful and not, stereotypical, shall we say?
It was difficult in that when I realized. I remember I was taking a walk. I was working on another show, and I was taking a walk at lunch, and I realized that the way I wanted to do this show was to write Sam's voiceover and really get into his head. And I got really mad at myself because I was like, this is going to be really hard. So it was difficult in that way because I knew I wanted to get it right. It wasn't difficult once I dove in. I think that in general, I appreciate writing that's not have comedy at the expense of its characters, does not make fun of its characters. And I think that's what we really strive for on our show. Even sort of more outrageous characters like Paige or Zahid, or even Elsa sometimes, like we treat them very kindly and we're not making fun of them. We're with them. And I think it's sort of the same thing with Sam, is like, if I'm feeling like it's an authentic, honest portrayal, then I don't have to worry about making fun of him. But I also don't want to talk down to him. I don't want to take away his teeth. I want him to be like a real, full, actualized character.
Well, did you do any kind of like research into the autism spectrum? Did you talk to people? What did you do?
I did so much research. Besides having personal experience, I did so much research. I read books, which is sort of how I found David Finch. I read one of his books, which was incredibly helpful in creating the character of Sam. But it's a great time to like be curious about autism because there's so much information. There's so many books out there. There's websites and blogs. And then once I kind of got into this world, into the autism community, people were so welcoming with information and forthcoming. And so we've had people come in and talk to us during lunch. We have informational sessions. I'm constantly learning. There are programs like at UCLA where we'll go and watch a group or we'll talk to somebody on the phone. We've heard, since the show has come out, I've gotten so many people coming to me with their personal stories, which is amazing. And also it's on its own sort of a form of research because I'm just bombarded with stories. And so, but there's, like I said, there's so much information out there, podcasts, and, it's just, if you want to find it, blogs, like there's wonderful information that has like real stories and real ideas. And so that's been super helpful. And also I have a writing staff of 6 people and they're all interested, passionate people. So I tell them to just look. So they come in with ideas. The other thing besides autism is we have to do a bunch of research on like penguins and seals and stuff, like Antarctica. and also we have to, like, it has to be smart research, like metaphors. And so that takes a lot of manpower. So we're constantly, I have a big book about Antarctica and penguins on my desk. And so I have researched a lot.
So can you talk a bit about, just with this second season, how, the character of Sam grows and changes and how his family grows and changes and all his friends and people like that. Can you just talk a bit about, narratively what happens there?
Absolutely. I thought I couldn't love anything more than the first season. And I think I love the second season even more because we get to just really, first season we were setting up the characters and who they were and what they wanted. And the second season we get to kind of live in their world and their skin. And Sam, season 1 he was on a search for love. Season 2, he's on a search for independence. And that's really exciting. It's exciting for him. He's in this place where he's realizing he can do more than he thought he could do. And he's thinking about, Elsa always had a very specific plan for what he would do post high school. And now he's starting to think like, maybe that doesn't have to be exactly what he does. Maybe he can decide. So obviously that's some conflict between him and Elsa. And then, the other characters, they all have really exciting stuff in season 2. Casey's starting to she starts a new school and she meets this new girl and the new girl is kind of a jerk and then maybe she's not. And then she starts to sort of question her identity. And that was an interesting one for me because Casey and Evan are sort of me and my husband. One of my friends saw the first season and said, "Did you just bring Mike into casting and say, get me another one of these?" Because I really modeled so many, like there are direct lines in that relationship from our relationship. So when I was trying to think of like, how do I mess up that relationship or throw it into some sort of unrest? I was like, I don't know how to do it. And then this idea came to me about, presenting this option that's very different than Evan and isn't necessarily about, is Evan the right guy for her, but more about who is she and who does she identify as and what should she explore and what should she do at this age and how committed can she be at 16? And I don't know, it's just like a lot of fun, loaded questions. And, Doug and Elsa, I love their story. They kind of role change. They role switch. Doug ends up being like the guy who takes care of the kids and stays at home. And Elsa, he's working still, but Elsa's living in a friend's house. Like it's interesting. And I feel like season 1, Elsa was kind of dark and sad. And 2 and 3, she's like, we really see different colors on her. And I think that's fun.
I think one of the sort of, dare I say, masterstrokes narratively is that, you mentioned wanting to write this love story, but, it's also a coming of age story. And, growing up and being a teenager is awkward enough as it is. But, having autism on top of that, it kind of, it's a coming of age story in two different ways, really, because it's about growing independence as a young man, and it's about growing independence as somebody who's on the spectrum. Can you just talk a bit about that aspect of it, the coming of age, the growing up aspect of it?
Yeah, we have a line. So we're shooting season 3 now, and I can't give anything away, obviously, but there is a line where Casey says, Sam's having a tough time with the transition, and Casey says, despite what mom would have you believe, you're not that special. Transitions are hard for everybody. And there is like a little bit of that. Is like Sam obviously has his very specific challenges, but so does everyone. And I think that's kind of thematically what the show is. And this coming of age stuff is like, I love it so much. All of that stuff with like all the high school stuff and them running up Casey and Evan running up the stairs and kissing at the top, like all of that stuff. I just like, oh, that's my bread and butter. So I think it's because when I was a teenager, I didn't have a lot of kids on TV that I felt like were like me. Like, I feel like I didn't connect. And so the fact that we have a pretty grounded cast and we're not glamming them up and, they feel like kids, like teenagers. I don't know. I just feel like I can really dig into those stories and make a kind of tell realer, more grounded stories with kind of nuanced characters.
Well, it makes it feel almost universal in a way. I mean, because it's easy to sort of separate yourself from somebody who's, on the surface different from you as Sam is. But at the same time, it's like he goes through the same things that every teenager really goes through.
Yeah. And in season 2, we really try to there were moments like at the end of the first episode where Casey's having a hard time and he brings her a little gift from Techtropolis and he says, I'm your brother. I can take care of you sometimes too. There are moments throughout the season where Sam takes care of the people around him, which I think is a really important dynamic as well. I think there's a lot in season 1 about everyone helping Sam. And in season 2, we see that they need him quite a bit as well.
Right. You mentioned your background in network television, and I mean you've worked as a writer and producer on a number of shows, including The Goldbergs and How I Met Your Mother. Can you talk a bit about how that experience helped prepare you to do this show? The creator and showrunner of.
Yeah. Well, I started as a writer. I've been writing since I was a little kid. In 2nd grade, I wrote a play that we performed for the kindergartners, and I was the witch, and I sang a song. So I've always been writing. And then I got my first TV writing job on the final season of Will and Grace. And it was terrifying, but it was like boot camp, and I learned so much. And then I was in TV comedy rooms for 12 years, and you just learn a lot. And the cool thing about TV writing is you're not just writing. I would be in editing. I would be on set. I would be doing post or voiceover or whatever. And I just, showrunning is a lot of that. You have to know how to do all that. So that time really prepared me. I was on How I Met Your Mother for 4 years. And a lot of that time I got to do, I was a writer on the show, but I got to do a lot of the producing stuff. And that stuff just really prepares you. So then you get into this job, and it's really a job that more than one person should be doing. It's just so much stuff. But you're somewhat ready because you've done all this already. And also I'm an oldest and I'm bossy. And so that helps. It's like, 50 decisions a minute you have to make. So luckily I'm like, okay at making decisions. But that for me was like the hardest part. Was at a certain point, I just would burn out on decisions. I'd be like, I cannot tell you what I want for lunch. I don't know, I'm done.
Well, I mean, lunch is probably the biggest decision that any of us.
I know. Now I know to make that one right away.
You mentioned you're shooting season 3 right now. I know that you said you can't give anything away, but can you maybe just a little taste of what we can expect?
Oh, are you trying to trick some details out of me? Okay, so well, if you've seen season 2, you know that Sam is on his way to college. So that has been super cool for us. We've had to, I had to do so much research in preparation for season 1, not as much in preparation for season 2, and then so much in preparation for season 3, because attending college as somebody in the spectrum is a whole new world. There's like literally new laws to learn and rules to learn, and what colleges can and can't do, and what students who are attending colleges with a disability need to do in order to get services, or so that's all, and then Elsa is in this place where her son is going to college, and Doug is sort of trying to figure out if he can forgive. We're figuring out what their relationship is going to end up being. And Casey is, she's really in the middle of some stuff. She's like in the middle of this like love triangle of absolutely gorgeous people. So it's a lot.
I think that was just descriptive and vague enough. So that was good job.
I mastered it.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on another wonderful season of your show. Appreciate speaking with you.
You too.
Thank
Have
you.
a good one.
You too. Thank you. And thanks to all of you at home for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below.
Please watch, guys.
Yes. And make sure you visit goldderby.com for all the latest Emmy news.